Okay, I'm Steve Mace from Solwise, and what I'm going to do now is continue my series of videos going through the ezMaster Wi-Fi server package, software package from EnGenius. So if you've been paying attention to our previous videos, you know how you actually go about downloading and installing the ezMaster and the VM player required for it. And my previous video essentially went through a series of PowerPoint slides going through the functions and features of ezMaster. So, as I promised at the end of the last video, what I'm going to do now is do a proper hands-on demonstration of actually using the ezMaster server system. So I've got the VMware program running, and I've got the ezMaster running. So as you know, the ezMaster uses a web-based interface, and I've installed it on my system to run on the address 0240. So we're going to go to 0240, and it's asking for my login details, and I haven't changed mine from the defaults, so they're just admin and password. ORD, enter. So here we have a virgin clean installation of ezMaster. I haven't created any projects, there's no equipment being managed through it, it's literally just fresh from installation. All I've done is I've just gone through the initial setup screen where it asks for details like company name, your company name, and email address and that sort of thing. So apart from that, it's as it comes. The first thing that you want to do with your ezMaster is you want to incorporate the Neutron equipment that you actually want to manage under the ezMaster. As you remember from my previous videos, the concept of management under ezMaster is this thing called a project. So you have a project. Under the project you have groups of equipment, and under each group you have things like, for example, the access points. So you've got a three-tiered approach to the equipment management. This is different from Neutron using a normal controller switch. With a normal controller switch, you don't have the extra layer on top. All you've got is groups of access points. ezMaster puts this extra shell on top called a project. So a project has groups of access points. How do you actually get the equipment into the ezMaster for management? And there are a number of different ways. Well, there are three key ways that you can actually do this. The first method is if the ezMaster is on the same network as the equipment, then the ezMaster can detect and allow you to incorporate the devices directly into the ezMaster. So I'll just show you how you do that. So I'm going to, first of all, I have to create a project. So I click on project. The first thing we have to do then is we go to create new project, and we have to give the project a name. I'll give it a name, local scan, and I click on apply. It's now saying normally you'd go direct to device configuration, so we click on there. It's gone automatically straight to device registration and automatically brought up two products which is actually found accessible on this local network. So what I can do now is I can select those devices, and I can click on add, and I can click on OK. And now what it's doing is it's actually communicating and connecting to those local access points and bringing them into the management of the ezMaster under this project called local scan. So we'll just have to wait a little bit while it does it. Connecting, provisioning, blah blah blah. Okay, so the two local access points have now been successfully incorporated into the ezMaster under this project called local scan. And now we can go ahead and start administering, configuring these two access points under this project. So from now on, from this point on, you'd probably go ahead and create a group and incorporate the access points as part of the group, and then do configuration of the group. So that's the first method that we can actually use to incorporate the access points into the ezMaster, and that's a local scan, a local network scan. So that's the first method. The second method, so of course the first method only applies if you're actually on the same network. So let's say we want to actually bring in remote devices into the system. So there are two ways that we can actually bring remote devices into the system. If we go to device inventory, and I click on add device. So right. Every Neutron product from EnGenius actually has a label on the back which has this thing called a check code. When the remote access points are powered up, assuming they've got internet connectivity, then they will go and register themselves with the registration server held by EnGenius. So they go and register themselves with the registration server and basically say, this is my MAC address, this is my check code, and at the moment I haven't been allocated to management of anybody's system. What we can do is we can actually enter here, manually enter a list of these access points. So we need the MAC address and the check code and an optional description. And I just happen to have taken a picture here. So this is what we're looking at. If you look at the back of the actual equipment, you'll notice there's this label. I hope you can make that out, but there is actually a check code there and a MAC address and a serial number. So what you'll need is you'll need the MAC address and the check code. Okay, now if you were actually sending a product out to site and you wanted to bring it into the management, you could either do this before the product was actually taken to site, or you can actually do it with the product actually at the customer's site. So all you need to know is you need to know the MAC address and the check code. So if I go back to just a quick thing here, if you don't have access to the label, or the customer doesn't have access to the label, so for example the product's already been installed on a ceiling and you need a cherry picker to go get it or something like that, then if you actually log into the web interface of the equipment and go to controller settings, the check code is actually also given on that screen. So if you can't see the label, then you can actually log into the device to get the check code. So once you have the MAC address and the check code, then you can actually manually enter it here and then go register, and yet again that will be pretty much the same as a local scan. What will happen is when you put the details in, your ezMaster will go to the EnGenius website, to this registration server. It'll check that this product exists with this particular MAC address and check code. So these are unique. So there's no other product with these. So there's no security issue here. There's no way of you accidentally stumbling across a check code. I mean, you can see what the check codes are. The chance of you actually accidentally stumbling across the MAC address and check code for a device is probably, I don't know, some stupid like 1 in 10 billion or something like that. Anyway, so you put the list in, you click on register, it goes and checks with the registration server. It says, are those products available for me to take management of? And if they are, then they are incorporated under the registration and management of this ezMaster. So that's the second way of bringing products into the ezMaster management. The third way. The third way assumes that you've already got an existing controller plus selection of Neutron access points installed at a site. So let me just show you what I mean. Is I've already just happened to have a controller and access points on my system here. I'm going to log into them, or log into the controller. So what I've got here is actually the exact same controller and the exact same collection of access points which I actually used for my Neutron hands-on video. So I've left them on the desk here because I knew I was going to be doing this video later on. So if I go to access points under the controller, here you can see here's that group of or selection of 6 access points which were already shown in that video. And 3 of them were actually part of a group I created called test group. So we can pretend this is at a site, and what we want to do is we want to push this configuration, this collection of controller plus access points onto the ezMaster so we can administer them from the ezMaster system. So what we do is we go to maintenance, we go migrate to ezMaster. Okay. Now what it's asking is, first thing it's saying is, if we migrate these to the ezMaster for you, what name do you want to give the project? So what's going to happen is a new project is going to be created containing these devices. So I shall call it Migrate. It's asking for the IP address of the ezMaster server. So obviously you would put in the actual address of your server. Don't put in my address. 0.240, and it's asking for the username and password for the server. Obviously I haven't changed those from the defaults, but obviously you would have already changed those and put in something sensible. Did I type that incorrect? Can't remember. Right, there we go. So that's all the information we need, and if I go apply now, what it's going to do is it's going to go through a process of migrating this equipment and the configuration settings in this controller into the ezMaster system under the banner of a new project called Migrate. So we just have to sit here while it communicates to it. All right, it's going on. So it's already connected to the ezMaster, and that's been authenticated by the ezMaster. It's now saying, right, the next stage is we're going to move the Neutron EWS access points into the ezMaster. We click on continue. So now each of the access points has been incorporated into the ezMaster under that project, and the final thing is obviously the controller switch needs to be migrated onto the project. So I'll click on continue. That's it. Now that really wasn't rocket science, was it? And it's just saying right now management of the controller has actually been disabled now, because it's now all being done by the ezMaster. So let's go to the ezMaster and let's go to projects, and look, there we have it. We have a new project. So let's click on that project called Migrate, and now it's just going through a process of bringing those that equipment, those access points, and the controller. So there's the list of access points which it's busy playing around with and configuring. And if we go look at the switch has already been brought into this project. So this is the project called Migrate, and under there we have the switch, so we can do management of the switch now as part of this project. And going back to the access points, they are still being connected, so we just have to wait a while for all of those access points to be integrated into the ezMaster system. And while it's doing that, let's just go and look at the groups. So as I say, the configuration has been migrated across as well. So under that configuration, there was a group called test group. Yet again, if you need to go back and watch my Neutron video if you can't remember, but I did actually create a test group, and that test group contained 3 access points, which I can show you here. So there was 3. Those are the 3 access points, and they're still busy basically being incorporated into the system, which is why they haven't got any IP addresses yet. So now we can go back to device management, device configuration, and we can look at the access points, and gradually they're all being brought online. So that's the third way whereby you could incorporate equipment or bring equipment into the ezMaster under a project. So just to recap, you've got the local scanning capabilities. So the ezMaster locally scans the network containing the ezMaster server to see if there's any Neutron equipment available on the actual local network. The other method is you can actually use the device inventory method. So we can click on add device. I don't remember how we did that, but click on add device, and we can actually put in MAC addresses and check codes, which, just to recap, we can get either from a label on the product or by going into the controller settings on the graphical user interface of the access point in question. So that's the second way. And the third way is we can do it, yet again going back to here, we can do it as a migration tool directly from an existing controller plus access point setup. We can actually instruct that to migrate the configuration and the various devices into a new project on your chosen ezMaster server. That was stage one. Stage one is let's get the products into the actual ezMaster under a project banner. Okay, so we've now got the equipment integrated into the ezMaster. Just to recap, we've done that as two projects. We've got the migrated project and we've got the local scan project. And what we'll do now is just go through group configuration of some of these access points under a project. So I'll pick the migrate project. So I'll go to project and click on migrate. So under the migrate project, we have 6 access points which have been claimed by this project. And 3 of them are already part of a group called test group, which is the one that we migrated from the Neutron controller. So what I'll do now is create a new group. So if I go to device management, I go to AP groups and I click on create new group, and I'm going to give this a name. This group. It's not very original, but there you go, this group. And next thing down is we need to choose the access points which are part of this group. So I click on add under member and I select the access points. Let's just go for those 2 and click on confirm. So these access points are now part of the group. One of them is the 860, which is an outdoor dual band unit, and we've got the on the wall access point, the 500, which is a 2.4 gig only unit. And if any of these screens are looking familiar, it's basically because these are virtually identical graphical user interface screens to the controller functionality. So if you've been watching the videos with the controller functionality, or you've been playing around with a controller, you'll recognize all these screens. And it's, as I said, all they've done is they've taken all the functionality and setup screens from the controller and integrated them onto the ezMaster system. So after you've chosen your members, the next thing you want to do probably is select a suitable country. And just to recap, it shows 3 United Kingdoms, depending upon which 5 gig band you want to use. And if you've been paying attention to my previous videos, you should know you should choose UK band B, which is indoor and outdoor operation. I'm not going to worry about any of the other functions for the 3 radio devices on here, either 2.4 or 5 gig. I'm just going to leave all those as defaults for the time being. And what we could do now is go to the WLAN settings for 2.4. And just to recap, there's 8 SSIDs per band. And by default, only the first SSID is enabled. Each SSID has independent functions for security and isolation and VLAN tagging. So I'll just go to the first one. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the SSID name and go down, and I'm not going to worry about any of the features at the moment. All I'm going to do is change the SSID name and put some security on the SSID. So WPA2 ASK both, and I'm just going to choose test for the passphrase. So that's all the settings I'm initially going to do on this configuration. Now what I'm going to do is going to save that configuration. Okay, so that's the configuration of the first SSID for 2.4 saved. I'm now going to do exactly the same thing for the 5 gig. So I'm just going to change the SSID name. I'm going to enable the security on it, and I'm going to put in the same passphrase. And yet again, now I'm going to save the settings for that SSID. So what we've got now is essentially an up and operating group. So we've got the members, and we've essentially set up the initial first SSIDs for both bands. So what we can do now is we can click on apply. And what it's doing now is it's creating this group, and it's applying the configuration of this group to those 2 members. Okay, and if I go to device management, device configuration, now we can see that we've got these 2 access points called this group, and both of them now are having the changes applied to it. So that's how quick and easy it is to set up a group for management of your group of access points. So let's just try some of the other functions that we've got in group configuration. So I'm going to go back to that first one that I created called this group. Let's see what we would probably want to do next. So one of the things that we'd probably want to do is enable roaming on those SSIDs. So I click on there. I pick the first SSID again, and I scroll down and I do enable fast roaming. And once I've done that, now I can apply the settings. And I'm going to do the same to the first SSID on the 5 gig band. Like that. And save that settings to the SSID. So that's roaming enabled on both of those SSIDs. And what I'm going to do now is also do band steering. As I say, band steering is the function whereby the access point will try and coerce dual band clients onto the 5 gig band in order to free up the 2.4. So click on there and just scroll down here so it's more visible. And under band steering, what I'm going to say is I would prefer the clients to be on 5 gig. So you see the 3 options there. We can prefer, force, or try and balance the users across the bands. I'm going to choose prefer 5 gig. And there's also a new box appeared in here, which is the minimum signal strength, because obviously what it doesn't want to do is try and push a client onto 5 gig if its signal is really rubbish. Comes up the default of -75. Yeah, just leave it as the default. So that's that done, and so we've changed the SSID and we've done the band steering, and now what we can do is click on apply, and now those new changes are being applied to the 2 access points, two access points which are part of this group. And what else can we do? Okay, let's go to guest network configuration, because that's probably what people are going to be interested in to do next. So I'll go into editing the group. Right. So down here, guest network. Click on guest network. So to recap, there are 2 guest networks. There's one for the 2.4 gig band and one for the 5 gig band, each with individual security and isolation options. And there's also an optional captive portal. And just to recap, that the when you do the guest network, each access point is acting as a private Wi-Fi router. So as with all routers, it needs to have some DHCP settings put on it. So these are the ones it's going to apply. I say leave them as default, never had any reason to change them. So what this does is each access point is its own little private Wi-Fi router, which means that the clients are very, very well isolated from normal clients connected to the network as a whole. Essentially, all the clients on the guest network can do is they can go out to the internet through the default gateway. That's all they can do. So let's just enable one of these guest networks. So we'll go to the 2.4 gig band. We'll put some security on. No, we won't, because we haven't enabled security. There we go. Enable it before we can do any changes to it, obviously. Go down to PSK, and yet again, both. I'm just going to go guest. So that's enabled the 2.4 gig guest network and enabled Wi-Fi security on it. So now we can save that. And we might as well do the same for the 5 gig guest network. So enable it, go down to WPA to PSK, click on there, and put some passwords in, which will just do guest again. Guest. There we go. So that's the 5 gig one enabled and Wi-Fi security, and now we just have to save that. So that's the guest network enabled on both bands. And what we can do is, so the next stage is you'll probably want to do a captive portal. So what I'm going to do is apply this, go and create a captive portal profile. So a profile tells it how it actually is going to, what sort of splasher page it's going to show for the connected clients, the guest clients. But what I'll do is I'll save this, so apply this, and then go and create a portal profile. Applying change successful, so done that. So if I go to hotspot service and I go to captive portal, there's the default profile, but what I'm going to do is create a new profile. I'll just call this test profile, whatever. As I said, it before, it does support various other types of authentication using databases of username and passwords, either built in or through an external Radius server. But I'm not very convinced by any of those. As far as I'm concerned, this service is okay for Splash and Go, but not much else. For the Splash and Go page, you can either direct to external Splash and Go page, or you can actually create one using a template in the device. For this exercise, I'm going to create a template in the device. So we can put a logo on the login page. I'm just going to pick any old JPEG that just happens to be on my computer. Don't know what that is. I think that's an album cover by the looks of it. I'm not going to put any message on for this. It's just a quick test. And I'm going to leave the T's and C's as default, and at the end of them agreeing to it, I'm going to let them redirect onto the URL that the user was originally trying to connect to, and I'm going to enable the timeouts of 30 minutes. So they're only allowed 30 minutes connectivity before they're going to have to reconnect. So that's a profile created. Now we can do save change. Okay, so now we've got our new profile created called test profile. And now if I go back to the AP groups, I can go back to the new group I've created, and we can go down to the guest network feature, and now I'm going to enable the captive portal, and I'm going to choose test profile. So what we've done now is we've enabled the guest network, set up security on it, and we've enabled a splash and go page for this guest network. And now we can click on apply. That's it. We've now created a group, done all the settings that most people want to do. There's a few advanced things there, but I may or may not cover those later on in this video, depends upon how long it goes on for. But we've created a test group, and now if I go to device management, device config, you can see we're still applying the changes to the final one of the access points. So that's how quick and easy it is to actually create a group. Not rocket science, nice and easy. Okay, so let's go back to home. Okay, for the final part of this live video, I'll swiftly run through some of the more advanced functions and features that the ezMaster gives you. So let's go back to our project. Let's go to Migrate, and let's go through the additional features and functions that we get on the ezMaster with project management. Going through the menu items, I'll just go through the menu items one after another, discussing each topic. So under monitoring, we've got active clients. Now it's completely empty at the moment, but if we had any clients connected on access points, obviously we would have an entry here. And the entry would show us the details of the client, things like operating system, fingerprint SSI, fingerprint name, SSID, band, blah, blah, blah. So we can get information on the active clients that way. And also we've got the option here to kick or ban the clients off the system. So we can do that. Next thing we can do is we've got rogue AP detection. Now, rogue AP detection by default is off, but that nicely leads me up to this thing called services. If I go to services, this is perhaps something that is probably definitely worth discussing. Well, I've already discussed it, but I'll just show you where it's set up. Remember I mentioned that there are features whereby the access points will constantly keep on monitoring the background, to ensure they're running on the optimum channel. And what they'll then do is keep on dynamically changing the channel depending upon if that's the best environment. So that needs to be enabled here. So it's under the wireless settings. So it's wireless background scanning. We could tick it for the 2.4, we can click it for the 5, and we can specify the interval for each pole. So by default it's 30 seconds. Now what that means is each 30 seconds it tries another channel. So, for example, on the 2.4, where there are sort of 12 or 13 channels, you can see that it's going to take about 6 minutes for it to check every single channel. So let's apply that. The other part in here is we have Auto TX Power, which is linked to the background scanning. What that means is that as well as checking the channel for it when it does the background scanning, it will check that it's operating at the correct RF power as well, and automatically change that power if required, such that it will reduce the interference between the access points. Now, enabling that can have issues. The problem is if you are talking to a client and the client's on the edge of picking up the signal or not, if the access point suddenly decides to actually reduce the RF power, that might end up with that client basically being kicked off the access point. So use the Auto TX Power adjustment with a pinch of salt. What I normally tell people is enable it for about the first day until it's sorted out the best power, and then untick it. Anyway, so that's the TX Power adjustment. Now we can go back to that project and we can go back to Migrate, and I can show you what the rogue AP detection is. So that's rogue AP detection. Unfortunately, we haven't given it long enough to actually scan the background because we've only just enabled that feature. And as I say, it takes 6 minutes, for example, to scan all the 2.4, and the 5 gig would probably end up taking the best part probably of about 10 minutes or something like that. So I can't actually show you this feature yet, but if you go to look at any of my Neutron controller videos where I've actually done this, you can actually see the sort of table that's produced. So all it does is it produces a table showing the SSID, type, channel, mode, band, blah, 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 and which access point has detected the signal. So what it's doing is it's checking for any access points which are transmitting in the neighborhood which are not part of the Neutron system. And it will tell you all this information about them. I'm not quite sure how useful that is, if I was to be honest, because if we did a rogue AP scan for our office here, I'm not kidding you, it would come up with probably about a dozen different Wi-Fi networks. I'm not convinced that's actually a worthwhile tool. Visualization, let's do visualization. Topology View. So Topology View is whereby it draws a virtual map of the layout of the network. Now this is a very simple network. All I've got is my controller and my access points connected to it. A more sophisticated or complicated network where you have multiple switches, you'd see lines going off to different switches and then branching out and branching out and branching out. So the topology view, I think it's very good because it does actually give you a full visual map of the layout of the network. So I like it. What else we've got? We've got map view. It's the first time we've used the map view. The map view works by connecting to Google Maps. So let's install the Google Maps plugin as it says. Now we only have to do this once, and this is a brand new installation, so it's never been done. So we're going to click on install. And it's successfully been installed. Oh, that was painless, wasn't it? So by default it comes up with a Google map showing some country where I don't know where on earth it is. I don't know where this is. If you do this on the Neutron controller the first time, it actually shows some place in downtown Singapore. San Diego, Istanbul Grill, California. My feeling is this is somewhere in America. And you never know, it might even be somewhere near San Diego, since it says San Diego Freeway on here. Look at that. Anyway, so what we need to do is zoom into a location. So we'll do Hull, UK. And there is Hull, UK. So what I'm going to do is zoom out of here so I can actually drag it to the Solwise office. I need to zoom out quite a long way by the looks of it, because it seems to have picked somewhere right on the top right of Hull. And what I can do is scroll down here till I get to the Solwise office, which is getting close. I think that's about it. Let's just zoom in now so we get some more detail on it. There we go. There's Solwise. Look, there we are. Zoom in a bit more. You can bring up a map of the area of interest, and then what you can do is you can pick your access points and drag them onto the map. So this is really a way of mentally noting where you've placed your outdoor access points. So let's take the EWS 860, which is an outdoor one, and we'll put it, I don't know, on the top of the Solwise building there. Once you've actually placed your access points, you can then do save map. And when you do save map, when you come back into it, you don't have to do researching for your local area. It'll bring it up automatically. So that's the map tool. Floor plan view tool. This really is for indoor products. So if I click on upload image, what we can do is upload a floor plan. We can browse to a suitable floor plan. Now let me see if I can find an exciting floor plan. Oh look, there's one. So floor plan, and I'm just going to give this, I don't know, plan, not very imaginative, my names, and click on apply. So now we have loaded a floor plan. There is the floor plan loaded. And obviously you can have multiple floor plans for different buildings with different floors, etc. So we've uploaded our floor plan. What I'm going to do now is actually go to Visualization Floor Plan View. There is the floor plan shown. Obviously there's only one floor plan here. If we had other floor plans, we can select them using this button here. Once we've got a floor plan loaded, let's make me shrink that, make it bring it on the screen. There we go, there we go, there we go. Right, so what we can do now is, just like we can with the external map view, we can pick up access points and drop them onto the map. Let's just pick up a couple and drop them onto the map like that. Okay. And what we can also do is we can actually, through the settings tab, we can actually do this thing called RF coverage and AP info. Now, it's a bit rubbish, this. One of the problems is that it draws a contour, which is, it draws a contour map, as you can see, like as we've shown here. But what it doesn't do is it doesn't take into account at all of any signal degradation going through the walls. So this is showing you have a brilliant, fantastically strong signal through the entirety of this floor, and also the outside going on for hundreds of yards outside. That's obviously rubbish. Now, the thing about the floor plan views, or this sort of heat map type thing, is people love heat maps. When we didn't have a heat map function, people all the time were saying, oh, heat map, heat map, heat map, heat map. And we kept on telling them, look, you really don't want a heat map function because it doesn't tell you anything practical. It looks pretty, but it doesn't really tell you anything. However, people still ask for it. So we now have a heat map capability into it, but the results, in my opinion, are absolute rubbish. However, EnGenius have actually launched a new online heat map RF coverage tool. It's an online system. You can upload maps, you can upload floor plans, and manually place access points on there, or even ask it to automatically decide on the optimum place for access points. It'll go along and it will actually draw you absolutely fantastic coverage maps. And the key thing about it is that when you upload a map, you can actually point at various walls, draw walls and areas, and advise the system what the materials are that these walls and obstructions are made out of. It's really, really, really good. It has a very comprehensive database. So, for example, you know, it has plasterboard walls and brick walls and concrete walls and doors and blah, blah, blah. And it is very, very good. Obviously, it takes a little bit more effort actually setting up and programming it, because you have to tell it what all the walls on the surfaces are. But it's well worth it, and that does actually go along and draw very, very accurate and very, very worthwhile and practical heat coverage maps. I could well recommend it. You just go to the engeniustech.com.sg website, and you have to do a quick sign up. But once you've signed up, you can actually use this online tool, and you can print the maps off and print off inventories of products that it suggests that you need to buy to do this coverage. Really, really good. I love it. It's fantastic. But this thing here, this sort of pictorial thing, just use it as a way of actually have a mental note of where you've placed your access points are. So you can place the access points are, and it will tell you things like what group they're members of and what their transmit power is and what channel they're working on, etc. For that, it's really good. But as a way of actually trying to predict RF coverage, a bit rubbish. Let's continue on through the menu items. We've got, under statistics, we've got access points. So under access points, it'll give us things like the traffic throughput and the client connection for access points connected to the network. Now this is only showing one access point has had any connections to it, which is the EAP 1300. And so obviously in the more real world, you'd have lots more access points ranged across here showing you different stats. We've got wireless clients. Yet again, this is giving us detailed information about the wireless clients that have connected to these particular access points. So this is giving us the fingerprint for the client, the MAC address for the client, and the amount of data that's gone in and out for that by that client device connected to that particular access point. We've got a real-time throughput thing. So let's go to that EAP 1300, which is the one it said a client had connected to. And it will now go back to the EAP 1300 and retrieve the traffic throughput information from that EAP 1300. So this is trying real-time throughput. So basically it's saying it's giving 120 seconds at a time. So there's no currently connected clients or throughput visible on there. But you can imagine, and if you go through my PowerPoint slides, it actually does show a pretty nice little sort of up and down waveform of true traffic type thing. Hotspot services. Well, I've already been through the hotspot services and shown you the captive portal functions, and the final thing is the ability to do a bulk update for the firmware on the access points. So by default this will normally be done automatically, so automatically it will be checking in the background for suitable firmware files for various devices that are part of your project. But this is a tool whereby you can manually upload firmware files and manually select the devices to apply that firmware file to it. So that was bulk update, which actually shows the access points, and you've got a similar tool for doing bulk updates for the actual switches and controller switches that form part of the project as well. So that's the ezMaster. There's a few other things under global settings, so tools to actually back up and reload the configuration, tools to update the actual ezMaster as well. So there are other tools here, but that is the bulk of all you need to know to actually install and get the ezMaster up and running. So I think that wraps up that video. Thank you very much.